This story isn't the elephant in the room that nobody wanted to talk about until recently, something that's over there. This is the elephant that we're all inside of that nobody wants to talk about. You just can't escape it. That's disturbing. Now, let's start with denials. We all hear about denials and think about that as a psychology. One I discovered early was what I call the Cessna. You all probably, most of you have it in your brain, Cessna or other small plane that it appeared in your brain the first moment you heard, hey, did you hear a plane ran into one of the trade towers? Most people we've discovered seem to have immediately thought, oh, maybe a terrorist, maybe a drunk, maybe a student, maybe mechanical failure, but it was a small little plane. Nobody imagined one, much less two, gigantic, big, loaded commercial jetliners. Briefly, this is a tendency to presume the least bad possible given the terrible news you just heard. Scientists do it. I use the term, some of the scientists I talk to now, I use this term. It's a tendency to minimalize. It's a kind of initial denial. The basic idea behind the initial healthiness of denial, psychologists say, is that it's a way to hold your meaning system together at first when you get shocked. You want to go into denial so you can just hold together until you begin to sort it out. Initially healthy, but not for long, of course. It was captured in the famous Tolles cartoon of 9 panels in which Uncle Sam figure is up here, a little figure down below, and the Uncle Sam figure said, global warming is not happening. Oh, it is happening. Oh, well, it's happening, it's not caused by man. Oh, it is not caused by man. Okay, it's caused by man, but there's nothing we can do about it. Oh, we can do something about it. Okay. Well, if we can do something about it, it'll be too expensive. It won't be too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. That's a beautiful example of this Cessna or minimalization technique. Another psychological aspect. I'm going to go very quickly through these. I'm just pointing at new bugs. We journalists, and I think we all of us, and possibly scientists, do something that Robert J. Lifton, who studied the effects of the psychiatrists who worked with the survivors of Hiroshima, calls selective professional numbing. It's a good form of healthy denial, possibly. People who work with people who are disturbed know that they have to watch out for the contagion, and so we all do a lot of natural selective professional numbing. I do it every day. I can't sit there and think about how right James Lovelock might be. Besides, there's now about 10 other prominent scientists who say maybe he's right. Difficult. Scientists are exquisitely aware of their own psychologies at work as well. I've talked to modelers who are more aware than any of the denialists ever are about the possible psychological unconscious tendencies when they're finding themselves in their models to be an outlier, to try to move and tweak their data so that they can fit. And they're always trying to figure out if they're being psychologically led by their own unconscious in a way that they don't want to be. Another form of denial, of course, is avoidance or displacement behavior, as psychologists describe it. Our editors do it, I do it. Cats do it. That's when it was first discovered, I think. Cats presented with a mental problem that can't quite figure out what this little thing that Mr. Skinner wants them to do is, they'll sit down and lick themselves. Displacement, giving their brains a chance to work on it by themselves. I've seen my editors do this frequently. Do not get me wrong here, please. I am very proud to work for ABC. When I took many of these concerns to them about how behind we are in the story 3.5 years ago, I got 2 very short answers. One of them was, you have some convincing to do. And the other was, do what you do. For a professional journalist, that wasn't a no, that was a yes, because you always, if you're a professional journalist, want to go through due editorial process. And I'm very proud of the lead that we built at ABC on laying down the basics of this long story. Euphemisms, referring to it as just, oh, those events, that kind of thing. Global warming itself, if you just use the word without thinking about it too much, can become a kind of a euphemism. It's a placeholder. Global warming, oh yeah, global warming. Here's a big one, a whole different kind of psychological thing. The jolt I felt in my guts when I first read the first review of James Lovelock's book that says it is over and there will only be a few breeding pairs left at the end of the century. I just, like this. No words, it was psychologically and deep implanted. I discovered that the psychiatrists, the psychotherapists have a word for this. It's called the investment in future generations, and we all do it. And very interestingly, they see the return of it in a course of therapy sessions as the return of sanity. Only a really healthy person with flexible thinking is able to have an investment in future generations, is able in the last third of life to want to take joy and pleasure knowing that much of your efforts are now over in thinking how you're helping the next generation do it. That's a sign of mental health, which is what the underlying theme of this whole talk is all about. Freud had his own doubts. He wrote some things, I'm told, in which he said, I don't think the old really do care about the young. They resent them, said Freud, I'm told. Erik Erikson, however, said, yeah, no, it's not true. There is a sense of generativity in Erik Erikson's term, and this is very important for this story, of course. When they see in the last third of life, especially this sense of generativity, of passing something on, it's a deep part of our psychology. Of course, there's psychological factors that have to do with the midbrain, which likes the warm, fuzzy feeling of good group efforts. What I call the Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland solution, which is a little bit too naive, but it's, hey, we got a big problem, but I know what we'll do. We'll get Uncle Joe, give us the barn, Aunt Bessie will do the costumes, and we'll put on the best darn show this town ever do, and there's a big montage, and then they do put it on, and miraculously, whatever the problem in the town was just evaporated. That's a very American solution. But it's not really the kind that we're looking for, the kind that FDR did and that all really good leaders do, which is meta-psychology. In that one, you're just sort of asked to be swept up into a euphoria of let's go all get together, the can-do spirit, we can do this, yeah. The really mature stuff starts when you start hearing phrases like, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Think about your own affect, about your own psychologies.